Thanks for joining us. United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan has passed away on Friday. He was 73. The Ministry of Presidential Affairs, in making the announcement, said that there will be 40 days of official mourning with flags at half-mast and 3 days closure of ministries and official entities at the federal and local levels and the private sector. Sheikh Khalifa's role had been largely ceremonial since he suffered a stroke and underwent surgery in 2014. Born in 1948 in Abu Dhabi, 23 years before the establishment of the UAE in 1971, Sheikh Khalifa was the oldest son of Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, the country's founder. He took up the presidency in 2004 after the passing of his father. As president, he headed one of the largest investment funds in the world, the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, managing hundreds of billions of dollars in assets. His brother and Abu Dhabi's crown prince, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, has been widely seen as the de facto leader of the UAE, handling day-to-day affairs for the Gulf state. Meanwhile, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah extended condolences to the family of Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan. In a post on Istana Negara's official Facebook page, His Majesty expressed grief over the passing and hoped that the family would remain resilient during these sad and trying times. Following the news of the passing, the King contacted Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan via phone call to express his personal condolences to him and the entire family. Al-Sultan Abdullah and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed were college friends at the Royal Sandhurst Military Academy in 1978 and 1979, and the close friendship of the two leaders remains to this day. At the personal invitation of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, Al-Sultan Abdullah will leave for Abu Dhabi on Sunday to join other heads of states and governments to pay their last respects to the deceased. The ceremony for paying last respects to the late Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan is scheduled to take place for 3 days starting May the 14th. The United States, through its Department of Customs and Border Protection, has agreed to work with the Malaysian government to address the issue of forced labour through the establishment of a working committee. Human Resources Minister Datuk Seri M. Saravanan said the committee, which would focus on exchanging information, including formulating policies that could support the country's initiatives towards combating forced labour, would meet every 3 months. In a statement on Friday, Datuk Seri M. Saravanan said the Department of Customs and Border Protection is also expected to undertake a working visit to Malaysia at the end of this month and hold a workshop with the country's industry players. Datuk Seri M. Saravanan, who is currently on a working visit to Washington, D.C., said the workshop will shed light on matters related to elements of forced labour that should be avoided by industry players so that their products will not be banned from entering the United States market. He said the working visit had opened up opportunities for bilateral cooperation in curbing forced labour, as well as being a platform for the United States to better understand the challenges faced by Malaysia in tackling the forced labour and child labour issues. Earlier, he had met with Department of Customs and Border Protection Executive Assistant Commissioner Anne-Marie Highsmith and the United States Department of Labour Deputy Undersecretary for International Affairs, Thea Lee, who also suggested that Malaysia provide exposure to workers on the importance of trade unions, adding that this is in line with the amendments to the Trade Unions Act 1959, which will be tabled in Parliament in July. Separately, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob met with US President Joe Biden and ASEAN leaders at the White House on Thursday. Biden hosted the leaders of ASEAN in person for a 2-day ASEAN US special summit in Washington, D.C., starting Thursday. The historic meeting is seen as the starting point in bringing a positive impact to the diplomatic, trade and economic relations of Malaysia. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri also stressed the stand of ASEAN in ASEAN-US cooperation at the summit, apart from hoping that the special summit would be the strategic cornerstone for ASEAN and the US to study and explore pragmatic cooperation to strengthen the existing ties. The Prime Minister also joined Biden and ASEAN leaders for a group photo at the compound of the White House. They then proceeded to an official dinner hosted by President Biden at the White House. This is the second time such a summit with Southeast Asian leaders is hosted by an American president in the US. In February of 2016, then President Barack Obama welcomed ASEAN leaders in Sunnylands, California. Other ASEAN leaders seen at the White House were Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah of Brunei, Indonesian President Joko Widodo, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong of Singapore, and Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Sen. Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh, and Laos Prime Minister Dr. Pakham Vipavan were also in attendance. The Philippines, which is currently holding its general elections, is represented by its Foreign Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. There is no representative from Myanmar, a country under junta rule. Earlier, the Prime Minister and other ASEAN leaders held a closed session of the Asean US Business Council, which was also attended by US Trade Secretary Gina Raimondo and US Trade Representative Catherine Tai. Dato Sri Ismail Sabri, representing ASEAN leaders, raised three matters that affected economic cooperation, investment and supply chain, as well as sustainable development. ASEAN also needed support after the severe impact of COVID-19, including political instability.
Amid this backdrop, sound policy instruments such as tax incentives, special assistance packages, and facilitative measures for smooth flow of supply chain are more important than ever to support our businesses in facing the uncertainties that expedite the return to pre-pandemic normalcy. In this regard, ASEAN is committed to continue facilitating business operations in the region for the benefit of all.
Therefore, new digital economic opportunities must be exploited, and there is a need to fully take advantage of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP.
ASEAN sees that RCEP presents an important tool to invigorate businesses and economic activities through a marked reduction in barriers to trade across the region. Beyond improving the ways of doing business, RCEP will spark creation of new regional supply chain apart from strengthening existing networks.
The Health Ministry has set up an independent task force to look into bullying at hospitals. Its Minister, Khairi Jamaluddin, said a toxic work culture should not be allowed at hospitals under his ministry. In his Twitter posting on Friday, he stressed that work environment must consist of respectful, supportive and empowering instead of abusive and humiliating. He also said that he had visited and heard about the experiences of housemen in Selayang Hospital before they make their rounds this morning, apart from uploading several pictures of his meeting with them. The feedback given to him was that there was a positive work environment as well as areas that needed improvement. Meanwhile, he said his ministry has formed a task force to lead the healthcare work and culture improvement. The task force has been assigned to, amongst others, come up with analysis and evaluation on work culture and human resource management, encompassing time and workload, channel for complaints, and performance evaluations. He said it will also analyse information from and the results of the investigation into the death of the Pulau Pinang Hospital houseman. On April 17th, a 25-year-old houseman attached to the Pulau Pinang Hospital died following a fall from his rented unit of an apartment at Jalan Datuk Keramat. The houseman had only been posted to the Pulau Pinang Hospital on April the 4th, and that the issue has been linked to bullying culture at the hospital. Malaysia's economy has registered a stronger growth of 5% for the first quarter of 2022 versus a contraction of 0.5% same quarter last year. The positive economic performance was mainly driven by consumption activities amid recovery in labour market conditions.
The performance of our economy in the first quarter this year does reinforce the fact that our recovery is on track. So And with the reopening of the economy, we saw further improvement in domestic demand, especially private sector spending, and our export sector continues to grow at double digits. So, secondly, the reopening of the international borders is expected to drive tourism activity further. Tourist arrivals, according to my statistics here, have more than tripled in the first 2 months this year. Before I start, I should have just...
The improvement also reflects the recovery in the job market, with the unemployment rate declining further to 4.1%, as well as continued policy support. Meanwhile, headline inflation moderated to 2.2% during the quarter from 3.2% in last quarter. With a favourable performance in 2022, growth is expected to be supported by continued expansion in global and domestic demand.
To show that the reopening of the economy, the relaxation of the COVID-19 restriction has helped the economy to grow more sustainably in the first quarter of this year. And if such momentum can be sustained, perhaps the projected growth of 5.3% to 6.3% is definitely within reach. And it goes also a decision to increase the overnight policy rate by 25 basis points, which takes into account the prevailing economic conditions that continue to show an improving growth trajectory. So overall, I think we are quite positive with the numbers.
Despite the positive performance, the downside risks, which have risen on the global front, also need to be taken into account.
The concerns, obviously, on the rising price pressure, whereby the central bank continued to look at the core inflation of 2% to 3% this year. So perhaps these are the key, one of the key areas in terms of risk factors that could actually have an impact in terms of the strength of our economy. But overall, the general sense in terms of the latest number that we saw in the first quarter, very much indication that the economy has gained further traction thus far.
Coming up after this short break, 3 residents die in Singapore flat fire. Don't go away. From the foreign front, a Russian soldier is scheduled to go on trial on Friday in the killing of an unarmed Ukrainian civilian, marking the first time since the start of the invasion that a member of a Russian military will be prosecuted for a war crime. Kyiv District Court identified the soldier on trial as Vadim Shishimarin and said he was accused of violations of the laws and norms of war. The defendant was a 21-year-old soldier in the Kantemirovskaya tank division from the Moscow region. He stands accused of shooting a 60-year-old man in the head through an open car window in the northeastern village of Chupakrivka on February 28th. Shishimarin faces up to life imprisonment under the penalties spelled out in the section of the Ukrainian Criminal Code that addresses the laws and customs of war. The Kyiv government has accused Russia of atrocities and brutality against civilians during the invasion and said it has identified more than 10,000 possible war crimes. Russia, however, has denied targeting civilians or involvement in war crimes and accused Kyiv of staging them to smear its forces. In Singapore, 3 people, including a 3-year-old, have died after a fire broke out in the 4th floor in the flat in Bedok North on Friday morning. The Singapore Civil Defence Force said 4 people were found unconscious in the unit, which had a vast accumulation of combustible items. The 56-year-old woman was found in the living room, while 3 others, a 35-year-old man, a 34-year-old woman and a child, were in the bedroom. The woman in the living room was pronounced dead at the scene by a paramedic, while the 35-year-old man and the toddler succumbed to their injuries at the hospital. Authorities have also rescued 3 people in a next-door unit after forcing entry into the flat, but they refused to be taken to hospital as their injuries were minor. Officials said 60 residents were evacuated from neighbouring units as a precautionary measure, adding that the cause of the fire is still under investigation. Two golds, 1 silver from Wushu in Hanoi. Sports coming up next. The 2021 Hanoi SEA Games. The national wushu camp made a surprise haul of 2 golds and 1 silver through the Taolu discipline on the first day of competition for the sport on Friday. The 3 wushu medalists, who were in fact making their debut at the biennial games, helped the squad to surpass its target of 1 silver and 1 bronze. Even though he attained the same number of points as the 2017 edition champion Lim Jo Wen Si Wei of Singapore after both completed their flawless performances, Clement was named the champion as his display was more captivating to the jury. Another Malaysian representative in the event, Yip Wai Kin, who missed the podium by 0.01 points, was in the 4th place with 9.68 points behind Siraf Naro Sirga from Indonesia. The national team later added another goal through Tan Ji Yan, who triumphed in the men's Tai Chi Kwan event and gifted Malaysia's 11th gold medal in the Games. The 22-year-old exponent from Batu Berendam, Melaka wooed the jury with a scintillating show to garner 9.71 points, followed by Jones Inso from the Philippines and Jun Kai Chan of Singapore for the silver and bronze. Meanwhile, Calvin Lee Wai Leong took the silver in the men's Nandao with 9.68 points, while host representative Pam Kwak Han and Hu Long Van won the gold and bronze respectively. The national Taolu squad will be contesting in the men's and women's Dao Shu, Gan Shu events, men's Tai Ji Jian, women's Hyang Shu, women's Tai Chi Kwan, as well as men's Nan Kwan on Saturday. Three men charged for murder at hotel. More from the local front after this breather. Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Haja Aziza Amina Maimuna Iskandaria on Thursday attended a strategic cooperation ceremony between Tourism Pahang and a restaurant based in London, Halia Restaurant, owned by Malaysian entrepreneurs that opened on April the 1st, will be a strategic partner to promote Pahang tourism and its unique cuisine, including those from Tunku Aziza's recipe books to the European market. Present at the event were Malaysian High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Zakri Jaafar, Pahang Menteri Besar Datuk Sri Wan Rosdi Wan Ismail, and Chairman of the Pahang State Tourism Committee, Datuk Sri Muhammad Shaka Shamsuddin. At this dinner, the Raja Permaisuri Agong thanked the Malaysian government for its support in making the inaugural Tenun Pahang Diraja exhibition a success. The week-long event, held in conjunction with London Craft Week from the 9th to the 15th of May, has received many visitors. Tunku Haja Aziza said this year's Tenun Pahang Diraja exhibition is an introduction on the country's heritage to the world.
To how to market, to sell Tenun Pahang to the world. Di mana mereka boleh order semua. Dan di sinilah saya kata penjara memainkan satu peranan kerana tenun yang ada di pekan yang ada daripada Kemang ke Chini ke Pulau Keladi ke Kampung Sui, penenun yang ada ni tidak they cannot meet cannot supply the demand, they tak boleh, tetapi penjara boleh membuatnya. Di mana nak 1000 meter pun boleh buat, semua boleh. Dan saya repeat lagi sekalian ke tenun Pahang Diraja yang paling cantik dan paling kualiti yang terbaik datang daripada penjara.
Tunku Aziza, who is also the patron of the Yayasan Tenun Pahang, received a visit from Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, who was in London on Tuesday before travelling to the United States for a working visit. On Wednesday, a member of the British royal family, Princess Anne, visited the exhibition held at the Malaysian High Commission in Belgrave Square. The Weaving Hope themed exhibition features the intricate work by Pahang prison inmates, the Raja Permaisuri Agong's official event attires, and a collection of personal designs, as well as archival fabrics from Museum Pahang. Nightline continues. A total of 6,748 cases of hand, foot and mouth disease, HFMD, have been reported in Selangor, with the weekly number of cases exceeding the warning level as of May the 7th. State Health Director Dato Dr. Syahari Ngadiman said 4% of the number were admitted to hospitals for further monitoring, while the others received outpatient treatment. At the same time, 118 HFMD clusters have been reported, with 95% involving nurseries or kindergartens as well as childcare centres. However, no deaths have been reported. Dato Dr. Sha'ari said the increasing trend of the disease in the state was mainly amongst children under the age of 7 since the beginning of this year. He said 33% of cases were due to the Coxsackie virus A16 and 22% from the enterovirus 71, whereas the rest were from other viruses. From the 18th epidemiology week of this year, a total of 525 cases have been reported, a decrease of 40% compared to the previous epidemiology week. The decrease is believed to be due to the Aidil Fitri holidays, as most of the childcare centres and educational institutions were closed due to the holidays, adding that there were no HFMD clusters reported during the same period. 3 men were charged before the Kuala Lumpur Magistrates Court with murdering a man at a hotel in Bukit Bintang last week. The trio, T. Muniswaran, S. Kataravello and Zulbiha Ali Khan Kamaldin, were jointly accused of murdering 49-year-old S. Prabha at a hotel at Jalan Bulan on May the 3rd. If convicted of the murder charge, they will be sentenced to death. No plea was recorded before Magistrate Wong Chai Sia, as the case will be heard before the High Court. The court set July 13th for mention. It had been earlier said that the victim was found dead with a gunshot wound to his forehead in a hotel room an hour after he checked in. In Selangor, a part-time lorry driver was charged in the Sessions Court with robbing a television news presenter last week. 32-year-old Muhammad Qayyum Maslan, however, pleaded not guilty to the charge, which was read out before Judge Jamaluddin Mat. He was charged with robbing 34-year-old Khairul Rizwan Azizan of a bag worth 500 ringgit and 100 ringgit in cash by the roadside near Exclusive Perdana, Damansara Perdana at 3:40 p.m. on May the 5th. The charge, framed under the Penal Code, provides an imprisonment for up to 14 years and is also liable to fine or whipping upon conviction. The court allowed Muhammad Qayyum bail of 10,000 ringgit with one surety and set June the 20th for mention. The accused was also ordered to surrender his passport to the court and to report himself to the nearest police station once a month, as well as to not intimidate the victim and witnesses. As Nightline draws to a close, let's take a look at the UK Royal Mail's plans to set up 50 drone routes over the next 3 years to make deliveries to remote communities. With that, I'm Adrian Seet. Thank you for joining us and stay safe.